Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a whole stack of source material articles, research notes, everything you've shared, and we sift through it all.
We pull out the key insights, the essential knowledge, just for you.
Our goal isn't just, summarizing. We want to guide you through it, find those surprising connections, help you really connect the dots.
So you feel genuinely informed, but without drowning in all the detail.
Exactly.
Okay.
And today, we're diving deep. We've got a rich collection of material focusing on Raja Yoga, the science of stillness.
Ah, the kingly science.
Yes. We're going to explore this ancient, really systematic path. We want to understand how it works, how it cultivates that deep inner stillness.
And how this whole quest for quiet isn't just unique to yoga, right? It pops up everywhere.
Absolutely. We'll look at echoes and other wisdom traditions worldwide, and then bring it right up to today, its relevance, maybe even urgency in our super busy modern lives.
And ultimately what this science of interiority might actually mean for you.
It's a journey not just about mastering the mind, but really mastering yourself by, turning inward.
A science of the inner world.
Okay, let's unpack this royal path, this journey into the throne room of the soul. So, digging into the sources, the first thing that jumps out is how Raja Yoga is presented. It's not really described as a religion or about external rituals. It's framed as a path of direct experience, unmediated, a science.
Right. And specifically, a science of interiority.
Why that emphasis? Why call it a science?
Well, the sources really highlight that it's a science because it offers this systematic, kind of verifiable method. You follow specific steps, you do certain practices.
And you observe the results.
Exactly. Within yourself. In the laboratory of your own consciousness. It's empirical in that sense. The proof is, in your own experience.
Okay.
And it's a science of interiority because your whole field of study, your experiment, is your inner landscape, your mind, your awareness.
That makes sense. And the name Raja, kingly, royal, what's that about? It sounds pretty grand.
Oh, it's deeply symbolic. It points straight to the goal. It's called the kingly science because the whole purpose is to make you the practitioner, the sovereign, the ruler.
Ruler of what?
Of your own mind. Think about our usual state, right? We get tossed around by thoughts, pulled by emotions, reacting to everything.
We're subjects, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Subjects ruled by the chaos in our own heads and whatever's happening outside. Raja Yoga offers the tools, the method, to reclaim that power, to sit on the throne of your inner kingdom and govern it wisely, with stillness.
I like that framing, reclaiming inner dominion. It's not about fighting the mind, it's about governing it.
Precisely.
And the foundational text for all this, according to the sources, is Patanjali's ancient Yoga Sutras.
That's the bedrock, compiled maybe 2,000 years ago, maybe more. It distills this ancient wisdom into these incredibly concise, potent aphorisms, sutras.
And the absolute core idea, the definition of yoga itself, according to Patanjali, is right there near the beginning, isn't it? Sutra number 2.
Yes, the most important line, many would say, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Okay, let's break that down. Cessation of the modifications of the mind stuff. Sounds intense.
Let's take the terms. Chitta is the mind stuff, the basic substance of consciousness. Think of it like the screen or maybe a lake.
Okay.
Where everything mental happens. Thoughts, emotions, memory, the subconscious, even our sense of I, the ego. It all plays out on the chitta.
And vrittis, those are the modifications.
Yeah, the fluctuations, the waves, the ripples, the whirlpools, constantly disturbing the surface of that chitta.
So all our thoughts, feelings, perceptions.
Everything. The nonstop activity, fleeting feelings, sensory inputs, memories popping up, urges. That's the vrittis. Ceaseless movement.
So if chitta is the lake, the vrittis are the constant waves messing up the surface. And yoga aims to stop the waves.
Essentially, yes. To bring the mind, the chitta, to stillness. The sources explain that our suffering, what they call dukkha, doesn't actually come from bad things happening to us.
No. Where does it come from then?
It comes from avidya, a fundamental ignorance or misperception.
Ignorance of what?
Of our true nature. It's not just lacking facts. It's like forgetting who we really are. We get so caught up in The vrittis, the passing thoughts, the emotions, that we mistake them for ourselves.
Ah, I see. Like looking at a reflection on choppy water and thinking that distorted image is the water.
Exactly. Or mistaking the clouds constantly changing in the sky for the vast, unchanging sky itself. We identify with the temporary stuff.
So the suffering is this mistaken identity, believing we are the waves, not the deep, still water underneath.
Precisely. Raja Yoga is the process, you can even call it a psychological revolution, to calm that lake, to still those vrittis.
Why? What happens when they're still?
So the true self, this pure, luminous awareness that's always there, sometimes called the seer Purusha or Drashtu, can finally be seen clearly, perfectly reflected in the calm, undisturbed mind stuff.
Okay.
In our everyday state, it's the chattering ego mind, the ahamkara, born from identifying with all those vrittis, that seems to be in charge. It's like an imposter king sitting on the throne. Raja Yoga is the method to, well, dethrone that imposter, to restore the silent witnessing self to its rightful place as the true sovereign. It's the journey from being a subject of the mind's chaos to becoming the ruler of your inner world.
That makes the name Raja so much more meaningful. It's not just a label, it's the outcome, inner mastery.
Exactly.
And this system, Patanjali called it Ashtanga, right? 8-limbed. It was Swami Vivekananda who really brought the term Raja Yoga to the West in the late 1800s.
Yes, Vivekananda was huge. He deliberately presented it as a verifiable science, a science of the mind.
Why?
To connect with the Western scientific mindset of the time. He wanted people to see it not as some exotic belief, but as a practical method you could test, a way to understand and control your own consciousness.
Okay, so the journey described is from the edge, the periphery, that ego self, the ahamkara, caught up in the surface waves, to the center, the true seer, the drashtu.
That's the direction, inward.
And what's the destination? When you reach that center, when the mind is still. Patanjali describes that too, right? In the third sutra.
He does. The third sutra states the goal, tada drastu sorope avastanam, which means then the seer abides in its own true nature.
That's it. That's the state.
That's self-realization, enlightenment, the true homecoming. When the mental waves, the vrittis, are completely still, the seer isn't distorted anymore. It's not obscured. It just rests, fully revealed, in its own pristine, luminous, unchanging state.
And the contrast is, well, us most of the time, the fourth sutra.
Right, vritti sarupya mitaratra. At other times, the seer appears to assume the forms of the mental modifications.
So at other times, we look like our thoughts.
Exactly. That's the state of avidya, that ignorance we talked about. We completely identify with whatever's going through our mind. We say, I am angry or I am sad. We forget we're the awareness watching the anger or sadness.
Lost in the movie.
Totally. We forget we're the screen, the projector light, and the conscious observer all at once. We forget consciousness is separate from its constantly changing contents. Okay. And the ultimate payoff, the fruit of this whole royal path, the science of stillness, is called Kaivalya.
Kaivalya. Yeah.
The sources say it's often translated as aloneness, which honestly sounds a bit bleak.
It does, doesn't it? It's maybe not the best translation. A deeper look shows Kaivalya really means absolute wholeness, perfect freedom, completeness.
Ah, not isolation, but integration.
Exactly. It's liberation from all the conditioning, the illusions, the avidya that creates that painful feeling of being separate. Separate from our true self, separate from others, separate from whatever you conceive as the divine ground of being.
So it's not an empty void.
Not at all. It's the full embodiment of yoga, which means union. It's like remembering deeply our true unified nature, like a gemstone that's been covered in mud, and the practice polishes it until its innate light shines through.
And that light is often described as pure consciousness, peace, bliss, love. The promise of Raja Yoga is moving beyond all that surface turmoil and suffering to experience that deep, unshakable peace, bliss, and freedom. It's stepping into that throne room and realizing the true king or queen, the real self, was there all along, just waiting for the noise to die down so you could recognize it.
Okay, so the goal is clear. Still the mind, realize the true self. Huge goal. But how? How do you actually do that? Patanjali didn't just give us the philosophy, did he?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
That's the genius of the Yoga Sutras. He gave us the practical roadmap, the detailed, systematic methodology, the Ashtanga.
The 8-limbed path.
Exactly.
8 limbs. Are they like steps on a ladder? You do one, then the next.
It's maybe more helpful to think of them not just as linear steps, although there's a progression, but more like interwoven aspects, like the limbs of your body, they all work together.
Interdependent.
Yes, but there is a natural flow. It moves from the more, let's say, gross and external parts of ourselves towards the increasingly subtle and internal, systematically guiding awareness back to its silent core.
And you mentioned framing this as a causal chain of de-identification. I like that. How does that map onto the limbs?
It's a really useful way to grasp it. Most of our lives, we identify with different layers, right? Our job title, our social roles.
Our body.
Definitely our body. Our senses, what we see, hear, taste.
And maybe most powerfully, we identify with our thoughts and emotions, the thinking process itself.
Right. I think, therefore, I am.
Kind of.
Exactly. That kind of identification. The 8 limbs offer a systematic way to gently, consciously loosen that grip, to dismantle those false identities layer by layer. Each limb builds on the one before it, creating the stability and purity needed to go deeper inside.
Okay, let's walk through them. Starting at the beginning of that chain. The first 2 limbs, Yamas and Niyamas, the ethical foundation.
Absolutely foundational. Indispensable. Before you can even think about stilling the mind in meditation, you need to create a relatively calm and stable base,
Right.
both inside and out.
Wow.
Because the whole point of Yamas and Niyamas is to reduce the mental agitation, the vrittis that comes from conflict, inner turmoil, messing up ethically, lack of discipline. If your life's a mess or your conscience is bothering you, your mind's going to reflect that.
A mind at war can't be still.
Exactly. You need to cultivate peace first.
So they tackle the roots of agitation. The Yamas are first. Universal moral codes. Restraints. Focused outward.
Yes, focus on how we interact with the world, with others. There are 5 yamas.
Okay, what are they?
First and most fundamental is ahimsa.
Nonviolence.
And thought, word, and deed.
Thought, word, and deed. Towards yourself. Towards others. Practicing this reduces the vrittis that come from anger, hate, fear, guilt. It fosters safety, friendliness, amity.
Okay. Nonviolence. What's next? Satya. Truthfulness. Being honest. Living authentically. This cuts down the mental churn of lying, pretending, worrying about getting caught. Builds trust, inner clarity.
Makes sense.
Then asteya. Non-stealing. Not taking what isn't yours, physical stuff, ideas, even someone's time or energy. Simplifies things. Reduces the vrittis of greed, envy, lack.
Okay.
Brahmacharya. This one's often misunderstood. It's about the right use of energy.
Not just celibacy?
Not necessarily. It's more about conserving and directing your vital force, especially sexual energy, towards higher goals, towards your spiritual practice, avoiding excessive sensory indulgence that just scatters the mind and drains the energy need to focus inward.
Got it. Wise energy management.
And the 5th yama is aparigraha. Non-possessiveness, non-greed. Letting go of the craving to accumulate stuff, status, whatever, cultivating detachment.
In modern terms, maybe like minimalism, mindful consumption.
Exactly. Resisting that constant urge to acquire more. Decluttering. This directly reduces the vrittis tied to craving, clinging, fearing loss.
So practicing these 5 yamas really cleans up your act externally, reduces friction, purifies how you relate to the world, starts loosening that identity tied to just worldly stuff.
Precisely. You're calming the surface waters. Then come the niyamas, the personal observances. These focus inward.
The inner disciplines. How do they build on the yamas?
If yamas are about outward behavior, niyamas cultivate the inner landscape. 5 of these 2.
Okay.
First is shacha. Purity, cleanliness. Not just washing your hands, though. That's part of it. It's purity of body, yes, but also speech. And crucially, mind. Actively purifying your thoughts, your intentions.
Getting rid of mental junk.
Exactly. Reduces negativity, mental clutter. Second is santosha. Contentment.
Being happy with what you have.
Yes. Cultivating acceptance of your circumstances, finding joy from within, not needing constant external validation or more stuff. It's a powerful antidote to the vrittis of craving, dissatisfaction, always wishing things were different. Third, tapas. Self-discipline, austerity, not harsh self-punishment, but more like focused intensity, a burning desire for the goal, building willpower through consistent practice, facing discomfort without crumbling.
Building grit.
Yes. Mental fortitude.
Yeah.
Essential for controlling the mind's tendency to just seek ease and distraction. Fourth is Fatiyaya. Self-study.
Looking inward.
Introspection, yes.
Yeah.
Looking honestly at your own thoughts, motives, patterns. And also studying scriptures or wisdom texts that reflect higher truths. This shines a light on the Avita, the ignorance, helps dismantle the ego's stories about itself.
Okay. And the last niyama.
Ishvara Pranatana, surrender to God or higher power or the true self. Cultivating humility, devotion, letting go of the ego's need to control everything.
Surrender.
It dissolves the vrittis of pride, control, the heavy burden of feeling like you have to manage everything yourself. Opens the heart to grace, inner guidance, peace.
Wow. Okay. Yamas and niyamas together. That's a really solid foundation. Ethical, purified, stable. It makes total sense you need this before you dive into deep meditation. You're creating a mind and life that just generate fewer disruptive waves.
Precisely. You prepare the ground. Still the most turbulent stuff. Then Patanjali moves us to refining the next layers, the physical and the energetic.
This is the second stage of de-identification you mentioned. Learning you're not just your body.
Yes. Learning that consciousness isn't limited or defined by the physical form. These are the next two limbs, Asana and Pranayama.
Asana, posture. Now, this is probably what most people in the West think of as yoga. Complex poses, stretches, but you said Patanjali's focus was different.
Yes, and this is really key from the sources. Modern yoga has evolved asana brilliantly for physical health, flexibility, strength. But Patanjali's definition in the sutras is super specific, tied directly to the goal of Raja Yoga meditation.
What does he say?
He says, Sthira Sukham Asanam. The posture should be steady and comfortable.
That's it. Steady and comfortable.
For the purpose of Raja Yoga, yes. The only goal of asana in this context is to find a seated posture, cross-legged, on a chair, whatever works, that you can hold effortlessly, steadily, comfortably, for a long time.
For meditation.
For deep meditation.
Yeah.
The aim isn't fancy poses. It's to conquer the body's restlessness, its aches, its fidgeting, so the body just disappears from your awareness. It stops being a distraction when your mind wants to go inward.
How do you achieve that? Just forcing it?
No, he says it's achieved through priyana shatilya ananta samapatipyam. Relaxation of effort and absorption in the infinite. You stop fighting the pose, you find ease within it, you let go. And when asana is mastered for meditation, it leads to taradvanva anapeta, become invulnerable to the dualities like physical pain or pleasure. The body becomes this stable, quiet, unshakable temple for the inner work.
That's a really different perspective from just doing yoga for exercise. It's purely functional for the deeper goal.
Exactly.
Okay, so the body's stable, quiet. Then you move to pranayama, breath and life force control. This feels like a major pivot point.
It absolutely is. It's the crucial bridge between the outer focused limbs and the truly inner ones. Prana is the vital life force, the energy that animates everything. Ayama means control, regulation, expansion. So pranayama is the science of regulating this life force, primarily by working with the breath.
And the link between breath and mind, it's so obvious once you pay attention.
Incredibly direct. You know this yourself. When you're stressed or agitated, your breath is shallow, rapid. When you're calm, it's slow, deep. It's automatic.
Right.
So by consciously controlling the breath, slowing it down, making it rhythmic, pausing it, you gain direct leverage over your autonomic nervous system and over the mental vrittis. Calm breath, calm mind.
So it directly impacts the mental waves.
Directly. Pranayama also purifies the subtle energy channels, the nadis, according to yogic physiology. And crucially, it helps gather and focus the mind, which tends to be scattered. It prepares the mind for interiorization.
Control the breath, regulate the energy, calm and focus the mind. Ready to turn inward.
Precisely. And that turning inward is the fifth limb, pratyahara. This is the pivotal shift, the hinge point.
Withdrawal of the senses.
Yes. Consciously pulling the mind's attention back from the constant pull of the outside world. The sights, the sounds, the smells. Everything that constantly demands our focus.
Is it like blocking things out? Shutting down?
Not really a violent suppression. It's more a deliberate reorientation. Instead of letting the senses drag the mind outward all the time, like wild horses pulling a chariot every which way.
You gather the reins.
Exactly. You train the mind to gather that energy, that attention, and turn it inward.
The sources use the tortoise metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Pulling its head and limbs into its shell.
Perfect image. When the senses are withdrawn, the mind, which usually just follows them around, is no longer scattered by all those external demands.
It becomes focused, potent.
Consolidated. Ready for the real work of meditation. And this is the third stage of de-identification we talked about. Your consciousness starts to learn. I am not defined by what I see or hear or touch. My awareness is separate from these experiences. It's the essential bridge to the inner sanctum.
Okay. Ethical base established, body stable, energy regulated, senses turned inward, we've crossed the bridge. We're in the inner sanctum now.
Yes.
And here we find the heart of the meditative practice. Dharana, dhyana, and samadhi.
Concentration, meditation, and absorption. These final three.
These three are often grouped together, aren't they, as samyama?
That's right, samyama, meaning perfect integration or complete absorption. They represent this seamless flow, a deepening refinement of focused consciousness.
How does it progress?
It moves from effortful concentration, dharana, to effortless absorption, dhyana, and finally culminates in the dissolution of the separate self, the ego, and the revelation of the true self, samadhi.
This is the final de-identification, letting go of identifying with thinking itself.
Exactly. Realizing you are the awareness behind the thoughts,
Yeah.
not the thoughts themselves.
Okay, so let's start with dharana. Concentration.
Yes. Patanjali defines it. Deshabandha chittasya dharana. Binding consciousness to a single place.
So focusing the mind.
On one thing. You choose an object, could be your breath, a mantra, a candle flame, an image, an internal energy center like a chakra. Doesn't matter too much what it is. The practice is just holding the mind there.
But the mind wanders constantly.
Of course, that's its nature. The practice of dharana is patiently, gently, without judgment, bringing the mind back to that single point. Again and again and again.
Like training a puppy.
Or training a muscle. You're building the muscle of attention, strengthening your ability to direct and hold your focus.
And as that concentration muscle gets stronger, does it naturally flow into the next stage, dhyana, meditation?
It does. Dhyana is the natural evolution of sustained dharana.
Yeah.
Patanjali says, tatrapatiya ingatanada tinam, an uninterrupted flow of awareness toward that object.
So the effort drops away.
Yes. In dharana, you're working at it. Come back, mind. In dhyana, the effort relaxes. The stream of attention becomes steady, continuous, like honey pouring smoothly from one jar to another.
The mind isn't fighting anymore.
No, it's resting. Effortlessly absorbed in the object. There's still an awareness of, I am observing this object. So the observer and object are distinct, but the connection is stable, unbroken. The mind kind of falls in love with the object of focus.
In the peak experience, the culmination of this whole process, samadhi.
Samadhi,
Well,
absorption, union, sublime state. Patanjali describes it, tadeva artha matra nirbhasam svrupa shunyam ivasmadi. Basically, that same meditation when only the object shines forth and the mind seems empty of itself is samadhi.
The mind disappears.
The sense of a separate mind, a separate observer dissolves. The meditator, the act of meditating, the object being meditated upon, they all merge, become one single reality.
Wow.
The vrittis, the mental modifications, either cease completely or reach this profound stillness.
And this is where the ego, the ahamkara, dissolves, and the true self, purusha, shines.
That's the experience. The limited sense of I melts away, and the pure, radiant consciousness of the true self shines forth, completely undisturbed. This is it, the union, the goal that yoga points to.
The sources mention different levels of samadhi.
Yes, typically distinguishing between samprajanata samadhi, where there's still subtle seed or object of awareness, and the highest state, asamprajanata samadhi.
Seedless absorption.
Seedless absorption, where even the latent tendencies or impressions in the mind are stilled. Only pure, undifferentiated consciousness remains. This is Kaivalya, liberation, realized through the complete stopping of the mind's modifications, revealing the luminous self that was always there, just hidden by the noise.
This whole system, Raja Yoga's 8 limbs, it's so detailed, so systematic, almost like an engineering approach to inner stillness. It's incredible.
It really is.
But is this quest unique? Is this search for a state beyond the restless mind just found in this Indian tradition, or do we see it elsewhere?
This is where it gets really fascinating. Because no, it's not unique at all. This search for inner stillness, this deep human longing, it pops up across cultures, across no different eras.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. It suggests there's something universal about the human condition, about this need to transcend the noisy ego and maybe a shared destination everyone's pointing towards, even if the maps look different.
So different paths, different languages, different practices, but all kind of converging on the same core truth, finding peace by getting beyond the surface self.
Exactly, like rivers flowing to the same ocean. We see amazing parallels when we look at other contemplative traditions, like Christian Hesychasm.
Hesychasm, the desert fathers and mothers, way back in the 3rd century.
That's them. They went out into the wilderness, seeking God not just in prayers and rituals, but in profound silence. The silence of the desert, and even more, the cultivated silence within their own hearts.
The word itself, hesychasm, comes from hesychia, right? Greek for stillness, quiet, rest.
Precisely. And their focus on inner quiet directly mirrors the inner limbs of Raja Yoga, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, withdrawal, concentration, meditation.
Their main goal was, what was it? Descend with the mind into the heart, to find God's presence in that inner space.
Yes. And their practice often involved the prayer of quiet, sometimes called apophatic prayer. It's about moving beyond words, beyond images, beyond concepts, emptying the mind of its usual chatter to make room for the divine.
That resonates strongly with the yogic idea that the divine or the self isn't in the mental storm but emerges in the silence behind it, like that soft little voice.
Exactly. And they saw the mind, the obsessive mind, as they sometimes called it, as the big obstacle. There's a saying, when you're at peace, you're never only in your mind. And that famous instruction, go, sit in your cell, and your cell will teach you everything. It points to the same truth. Wisdom comes from turning inward, away from the distractions.
Not escaping the world, but finding inner freedom to engage with it differently.
A converging path, for sure. Then you have Zen Buddhism, especially the practice of Zazen.
Like Zen, just sitting, sounds simple, almost too simple.
Deceptively simple. It's the core meditation practice in Zen, aimed at realizing stillness and the true nature of reality. It's often called the art of non-doing.
Non-doing.
Not trying to achieve some special state, just resting in awareness, being present.
How does their way of stilling the mind compare to, say, Raja Yoga's focus?
Well, while some Buddhist practices use focus points, classical Soto Zen Zazen emphasizes this open, spacious awareness. You sit, often facing a wall, and you just observe. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, they arise, they pass. You watch them without getting involved.
Like watching clouds?
Exactly like watching clouds. You see them, acknowledge them, but you don't chase after them, you don't judge them, you don't try to stop them, you just let them drift by.
And they often sit with eyes half open, looking down softly.
Right. And that little detail is quite profound. It reflects their philosophy. The point isn't to shut out the world or go into a trance. It's about being fully present, fully grounded in the world, but experiencing it from a place of inner stillness and clarity.
So the goal isn't to attain enlightenment,
but to realize your true nature is already enlightened, already still, already radiant. It's just covered up by the mind's activity. Through this physical and mental non-meddling, as they call it, you cultivate patience, resilience, trust. The wisdom emerges naturally from that quiet space. Stillness here is like the clarity of just being.
Beautiful. A different flavor of stillness. What about the Sufis, the Mevlevi order, the whirling dervishes? That seems like the opposite of sitting still.
It does, and that's what makes it so fascinating. It's another path, finding stillness within dynamic movement. The Sema, the whirling dance, is this incredibly powerful moving meditation.
It shows stillness isn't just about being physically static.
Not at all. The ceremony itself, which comes from the mystic Rumi in the 13th century, is packed with symbolism. The tall hat, that's the ego's tombstone. The white robe, the ego's shroud. The whirling itself is the soul's journey, turning towards union with the divine.
And the hands, one up, one down.
Yes. The right hand turned up, receiving grace energy from the cosmos. The left hand turned down, bestowing that grace onto the earth, onto humanity. The dancer becomes a conduit, a channel.
How does the whirling lead to stillness?
Through the continuous disciplined spinning, they enter a kind of meditative trance. They consciously let go of the individual ego, transcend the usual stream of thoughts and worries.
And they find stillness in the center of the spin.
Exactly. Amidst all that intense outer movement, there's this profound inner experience of stability, peace, centeredness, a still point in the turning world. The ultimate goal is called mukabeli, coming face to face with the beloved, with God. The Sema shows that surrendering the small self to a larger rhythm, a cosmic dance, can bring this unshakable inner peace, like finding the silent axis around which everything revolves.
Yeah.
It's a path of ego death, fauna, leading to subsistence, bhaka, in the divine presence.
So we have Raja Yoga's systematic climb inward, Christian Hesychasm's quiet descent into the heart, Zen's non-doing presence, Sufism's dynamic surrender. They're so different on the surface.
Culturally, methodologically, yes, very different.
But underneath, they all seem to be pointing at the same thing. Getting beyond the limits of the restless, identified mind to find this deeper state. Stillness, where reality or the self or God or the beloved can be known directly.
When you compare them, you see this unity. Their view of the mind and ego as the main obstacles, the nature of the stillness they seek, the ultimate goal, liberation, union, true seeing. They're distinct paths, each beautiful in its own way, but they converge on that core human quest, finding peace and connection by going beyond the ego's noise.
Okay, so this ancient science, Raja Yoga, echoed in these other traditions. How did it really land in the modern world? How did it get such a global platform?
Well, a really key figure in bridging that gap, especially in the 20th century, was Paramahansa Yogananda.
Ah, yes.
Widely known. He was a master who didn't just embody these teachings, but had this incredible gift for translating them, making them accessible, making them feel relevant for modern seekers, both in India and, crucially, in the West.
He's famous for bringing Kriya Yoga to the world, right?
That was absolutely central to his mission, a sacred technique passed down through his lineage of enlightened gurus.
And he set up organizations.
Yes, to help disseminate the teaching systematically. He founded Yoga Satsanga Society of India, YSS, back in 1917, and then Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF, in the U.S. in 1920.
And Kriya Yoga itself, he presented it as part of Raja Yoga.
As an advanced technique within Raja Yoga, yes. Specifically focused on pranayama, the life force control limb, but, well, supercharged, you could say.
Advanced breath control.
It's more than just breath control, though breath is involved. It's a specific psychophysiological method. It works directly with prana, the life energy, within the subtle channel of the spine, the cerebrospinal axis. Yogis sometimes call this the tree of life because it's so connected to consciousness.
And he called it the airplane route.
He did. The airplane route to God realization.
Yeah.
Because he taught it, it was a highly effective way to accelerate spiritual evolution compared to slower methods.
How does it work physiologically?
The core practice involves mentally guiding a current of life, energy, prana, up and down the spine, consciously energizing the 6 spinal centers, the chakras.
Okay.
Yogananda explained that this specific technique helps decarbonize the blood and recharge it with oxygen. But then that oxygen is transmuted into a subtle life current that revitalizes the brain and the spinal centers directly.
So it has a tangible effect on the body's energy system, which then supports meditation.
Exactly. By activating and controlling prana this way, a Kriya yogi can make years of spiritual progress, theoretically, in a much shorter time. It's directly linked to classical pranayama, but offered as this potent, accelerated form.
No, one of Yogananda's biggest impacts seems to be how he talked about stillness itself. He really pushed back against the idea that it's just empty.
Oh, absolutely crucial, especially for the Western mind, maybe skeptical, thinking stilling the mind sounds like becoming a zombie or just blanking out. Yogananda taught passionately that the stillness you find in deep meditation isn't a void at all. It's supreme fullness.
Fullness of what?
That's the doorway, he said, to superconsciousness, a state beyond our ordinary thinking mind. Pure, intuitive, vastly expanded awareness.
So in superconsciousness, you're not just quiet. You're intensely aware of something else.
Precisely. An overwhelming presence, the presence of God or spirit. And it's not abstract. It's filled with tangible, experienceable qualities. Ever new joy. and onto unconditional love, peace, profound wisdom.
He used vivid language, didn't he? Like the soul drinking the nectar of superconscious ecstasy.
Beautiful descriptions. And that positive, life-affirming goal, experiencing divine joy, really resonated. It helped Raja Yoga appeal to modern people who are seeking fulfillment, happiness, not just, harsh discipline or annihilation of self. For him, stillness wasn't the end of life. It was the beginning of really living consciously, in spirit.
That shifts the whole motivation from maybe duty or escape to joyful discovery.
Yes.
And he managed to blend this devotional heart with a really rigorous scientific approach to the practice.
That was his genius. He synthesized the step-by-step methodology, the science part, with the heart's deep longing for connection with the divine. He built a bridge from intellectual skepticism to direct personal experience.
How did he emphasize the science part?
He presented the techniques as working like mathematics. If you practice them correctly, consistently, they produce definite, repeatable results within your own consciousness. Verifiable.
And before people learned Kriya Yoga itself, he taught preparatory techniques.
Yes, absolutely. Through the YSSSRF lessons that people study at home, you first learn 3 foundational techniques. They prepare the body and mind for the deeper practice of Kriya.
What are they?
First, the energization exercises, a series of 39 specific psychophysical exercises. They're designed to consciously draw prana, life energy, into the body from the cosmic source all around us, and then direct it to purify and strengthen the entire system.
Okay, working with energy directly.
Yes. Then, the Hong Sao technique of concentration. It's an ancient, simple, but powerful technique using the breath and a mental repetition to withdraw your energy and attention from outward distractions, helping you focus inward, building that dharana muscle.
Concentration.
And third, the Anam technique of meditation. This technique helps you expand your consciousness and directly experience the divine presence as the cosmic sound, the cosmic vibration of Elim, the Holy Ghost, the Word. It's often heard internally in deep states of meditation.
So these give you something concrete to work with. Energy, concentration, vibration. Very tangible for someone looking for empirical results.
Exactly. It gives the modern, maybe scientifically minded person a practical way in, something to actually do and experience. But the ultimate aim was always devotional.
God
contact, union of the soul with spirit. Those were his terms. The profound stillness achieved through the techniques, especially that breathless state he described in advanced Kriya meditation, that stillness becomes the perfect inner altar.
An altar.
An altar upon which you can offer your love, your devotion to the divine. In that stillness, when the breath and heart are quieted, consciousness is momentarily freed from its identification with the body. You perceive your true nature, the soul, a spark of God.
So it's this blend. Techniques, the how, combined with the goal of union, the why.
Perfectly balanced. Integrating the head and the heart, satisfying the intellect's need for understanding and method, and the heart's deep longing for connection and love.
It really feels like this ancient science brought into our time by people like Yogananda is maybe more needed now than ever before. Our modern lives often feel like the complete opposite of stillness.
You absolutely nailed it. Raja Yoga isn't just some interesting historical practice. It feels like a direct, powerful antidote to the specific challenges we face right now.
We live in this age of, what did the sources call it? Noise and fragmentation.
Yes. It's a constant assault, isn't it? On our senses, on our attention, on our inner peace.
And you see the results everywhere. The anxiety levels, the overwhelm, the feeling of being disconnected.
From ourselves, from each other, from meaning.
Yeah.
It's epidemic.
Right.
And in that kind of environment, actively cultivating stillness isn't some luxury retreat. It's essential restoration. It's about reclaiming your sanity, your center, your resilience, so you can actually engage with the world in a healthy way, not just be flattened by it.
The tyranny of noise and fragmentation. It really feels like tyranny sometimes.
Think about it. Our whole contemporary life, especially with technology, is designed to grab our attention and keep it focused outward. Constant notifications, endless scrolling feeds, the pressure to be available 24/7.
Information overload, never-ending to-do lists, the glorification of just being busy all the time.
Exactly. And that external chaos that gets internalized, our minds become Restless, fragmented, always jumping to the next thing. Life feels like something you just manage, emails, tasks, feeds, rather than something you deeply experience.
Where's the space for reflection? For just being?
It vanishes.
Yeah.
And this constant state of low-grade panic, keeping our nervous system jacked up in fight-or-flight mode, it directly fuels the stress, the anxiety, the burnout, the depression we see so much of.
We end up living this divided life, the sources mention, separated from our own core because there's no quiet space left to even hear ourselves think, let alone align our actions with what truly matters to us.
And this isn't just anecdotal. Science is piling up evidence showing how detrimental this lifestyle is to our brains, our bodies, our overall well-being. It confirms the urgent need for practices like meditation that restore balance and calm the nervous system.
So Raja Yoga offers a direct way back, not by running away from the world, but by grounding yourself so deeply inside in that unshakable inner center that you can face the chaos from a place of strength.
Cultivating stillness through a systematic path like this. It's maybe the ultimate form of self-care today. And it's almost a revolutionary act, isn't it? In a culture that demands constant outward focus and external validation.
Saying, no, I'm going inward for a while.
Exactly. And by regularly creating and entering that inner sanctuary, you build incredible resilience. You stop getting knocked over by every wave. You learn to navigate the storms of life with more grace, more equanimity, like finding the calm eye within the hurricane.
It changes how you interact with everything. You move from just reacting out of fear or anger or anxiety
To responding from a place of wisdom, clarity, maybe even compassion.
Yogananda had that great phrase, calmly active and actively calm.
Beautiful, isn't it? Bringing the peace you find in meditation out into your daily life, into your actions. That inner peace stops being this fragile thing you only feel when you're sitting quietly. It becomes a deep wellspring of strength inside you, always available.
And it's also about reclaiming agency, isn't it? In a world trying to dictate our thoughts, our feelings, what we should buy, what we should worry about.
Absolutely. The simple act of consciously withdrawing your attention inward, that practice of pratyahara and the meditation that follows, is fundamentally liberating.
Taking back control of your focus.
These inner practices, they aren't passive drifting. They're active training. Training to master your own attention. And attention is the currency of our time, right? Everyone's vying for it.
True.
And then, in the quiet space that opens up when you withdraw your attention from the noise, you're no longer just a puppet of external conditioning or your own habitual thought loops. You can actually start to hear. Well, the sources call it the whispers of the heart.
Intuition, inner truth.
That subtle knowing. Your own wisdom, your authentic values, your real sense of purpose, they can finally emerge, unclouded by all the external static.
So your actions start to come from that deeper place, not just reacting to pressure.
Conscious expression of your deepest self, that's the potential. It's the ultimate restoration, moving from being managed by chaos to experiencing meaning, moving from fragmentation to integrated, radiant wholeness.
So we've journeyed through this ancient science, Raja Yoga. We've explored its really systematic 8-limbed path. We've seen these incredible echoes in other mystical traditions around the globe.
The universal quest.
We looked at its powerful revival, its presentation for our times by Paramahansa Yogananda, and we've really landed on its profound relevance today as a necessary antidote, maybe, to the pressures of modern life.
We've seen how it's designed step by step to guide you from being ruled by mental chatter and turbulence
to becoming the sovereign of your own inner kingdom, rediscovering that connection to your true self.
Right.
And maybe the deepest truth, the unspoken current running through all of this is that stillness. It isn't actually something you achieve. It's not a goal out there or a technique you master, ultimately.
What is it then?
It's our original nature. It's the ground of our being. It's already here. So the 8 limbs, the practices, they aren't building stillness.
They're more like excavation, gently removing all the layers of noise, conditioning, mistaken identity that cover up the silence that's always, always present underneath.
It's a path of remembering then, not becoming.
Remembering what we've always been. The practices are just sacred tools. They help create the inner space, clear the surface of the lake so that remembrance, that recognition can dawn.
The journey ends right where it began.
in that silent, luminous awareness, our eternal home, a return to the self that was never actually lost, just forgotten, amidst all the noise.
Right.
So here's where it gets really interesting. What if that silence you sometimes notice, that little gap between thoughts, what if that isn't just empty space?
What if it's the only place where your true self actually speaks, not with words, but just in pure, unshakable being?
What profound wisdom might be patiently waiting right there in that quiet, just waiting for you to turn your attention toward it? We've taken a deep dive today into Raja Yoga. Its ancient wisdom, its practical system, its connections across traditions, its modern revival, and its deep relevance for us now.
We've seen how this path aims to take you from the turbulence inside to inner sovereignty, inner connection.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Maybe the most valuable resource you have in this chaotic world is your own attention.
And the most powerful, most transformative journey you can possibly take is the journey inward.
Consider this. If true stillness isn't an absence of something, but the fundamental presence of your own deepest being, what might you discover?
What might you find if you dedicated just a few minutes today or tomorrow to simply being quiet and listening within yourself?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.